find it a little bit strange, and I wonder what you think about this, because I think that it's a very shallow lead that Labour have got, not in the sense of how big it is, but what it means. Because I think it's people who just despise what the Tories have done rather than think Keir Starmer, he's the fella to get us through this. And in Liverpool, you definitely feel that. And, you know, as you were saying before, people love radical policies in Liverpool, and they just don't see that in Keir Starmer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if we'd say the same thing on this, but I agree, right? I think that, if you look at the numbers, 20 points, 15 points, whatever it is, and obviously as far as national electoral politics has gone for a long time, that's a big polling lead. But you look at Keir Starmer's personal favourability, it's low. I think it's, as Cal said, right, I think there's a degree of people getting frustrated with government. I think people want an alternative, and as a result of that, because of our electoral system, that sort of frustration inevitably sort of ends up finding a home in the Labour Party. I think whether or not the scale of what's happened, I don't know if it would happen on the same scale if he hadn't moved the party towards the right. I don't know if I don't know, let's say Corbyn or even Miliband was still in charge of the Labour Party, whether Labour would benefit to the extent that they have done, because those kind of floating moderates, call them, I don't know, your sort of like Remainer Tories, One Nation Tory type people, maybe sort of home counties, the places where actually the Lib Dems are really challenging the Tories now. I don't know if those people, no matter how bad a job Boris Johnson was doing, no matter how bad a job Liz Truss has done, I don't know if those people would ever be able to actually accept voting for someone like Corbyn. And I wonder how much Starmer's pulling the party to the right means that they actually now will vote for the Labour Party in a way they wouldn't before.
It depends how heavily the Conservatives continue to bastardise the economy before the next election.
Yeah.
Because you vote Conservative to conserve your assets, right? And if you've got nothing left, you might go, well, better try someone else. But I just think that some of the policies that Keir Starmer has been talking about the last couple of months are just not in line with Liverpool. Like, I think about free school meals, and I think that's an issue that is so important to the area. You've got areas of huge deprivation, but you've also got this real community, I hate the word spirit, but spirit in Liverpool that I don't actually think you get in a large swathe of the rest of the country. I mean, what kind of things come up on the doorstep that you don't think maybe Starmer is addressing?
I think the child benefit cap is one of them, and I think the fact that he doesn't want to commit on that just shows you how scared he is to lose that ground to those soft Tories, like you say. But you're right, Liverpool is a city of communities that all really care about each other, and these policies that he's putting forward, I just don't think they identify with any of them at all. In particular, in the city, you're probably getting things such as the NHS, like doctor's appointments, things like that. And I don't really think Starmer's saying that much about them, except for, let's tighten our belts, we're in for a ride here, lads. And the people of Liverpool, and probably other cities around the UK as well, are wanting someone to say, hang on a minute, this is what we're going to do to offer you a little bit more support, because at the moment, you've got people that are living in situations where they're wondering whether they can buy tea for the kids, or whether they can go and travel on a bus to go to work. And it's incredible, and it's really upsetting actually when you see that. And those people are look to people in the Labour Party and beyond, and it makes me sick to my stomach a little bit to know that there's Labour politicians in Liverpool that can watch that and then go and support Keir Starmer in Parliament.
Yeah, I mean, it's also a city deep rooted in trade unionism. I mean, it's forever, which is incompatible with Starmer at the moment. But then Ian Byrne, who is the MP there, well, for part of it at the moment, I mean, he is still a socialist MP. So is he not very popular? Oh
yeah, Ian Byrne's massively popular, and you might have heard about this, but there was they triggered a reselection in West Derby for him, and there's a lot of dirty politics involved in that. By the way, that's what I'm told. Obviously, I haven't seen it firsthand.
No, I've heard similar.
Or the guy who challenged him, I think he lost by about 3 votes, something like that. And it was a vicious campaign. Steve Rother and other people got involved, but that shows you the level to which the Starmerites and other people are willing to go to get rid of those more socialist-minded MPs. And don't take me wrong, I'm not a socialist I'm a liberal, but I'm a progressive liberal, and I like to see progressive politics. And it's such a shame when you have a progressive party doing things like that to progressive MPs.
It's kind of what the sort of premise is, right? We've already mentioned sort of electoral reform once and the referendum on it, but if you are going to have a two-party system, the entire fucking point of it is that you have two parties which are broad churches, right? You have a Labour Party that can accommodate socialism along with liberalism. You have a Tory party that can accommodate fiscal hawks and social conservatives with environmentalists and all the rest of it. And it's actually an interesting sort of feature of modern British politics is the way that both of the parties in any iteration have polarized, right? Whether it's in the current instance of the Conservatives, actually, if to my mind, I've spoken about this before on the podcast, but is actually a very right-wing government. Rishi Sunak's policy platform is like quite bizarrely socially conservative, particularly in contrast to Boris Johnson. But before that, a party of pursuing a really hard Brexit deal. The same way under Corbyn, the Labour Party becomes very, very socialist. Probably doesn't pursue like a factionalist agenda in the same way that the Starmerites and the centrists have. And I think actually probably a lot of those people are regretting now not sort of being more aggressive and possibly purging a more centrist side of the party in the way that they have now been aggressively pursued themselves. Unless you're going to look at seriously reforming the electoral system, it's hard to imagine a world in which like we strike out beyond those boundaries.
Yeah. Well, as a Lib Dem, you can probably imagine that I really agree with that.
That's what I was saying.
I've always supported electoral reform, but I think that's a really good point. So people have said to me in the Labour Party that the right under Corbyn weren't pursued nowhere near the amount that the left have been pursued under Starmer. And is that because the centrists and the right are more ruthless in the Labour Party and they see this as we're not going back there again? Or is it the fact that the ones who were the more left-wing types under Corbyn were a bit more accommodating? It's difficult to know from the outside, but it's a very interesting battle for the heart of the Labour Party.
My read on that is that Starmer is incredibly ruthless. I think when he makes a decision, i.e. to purge, for example, the Corbynite faction from the party, which is a gamble, by the way. It's not. That's not necessarily that was always going to pay off. Particularly on the financial side of things, you go after him. You kick him out, but then you alienate possibly hundreds of thousands of your paying members. As a mass membership organisation, there's a financial consequence for that. It's not necessary that it's going to be all sunshine and rainbows. They've now turned to sort of more corporate backers to fill that financial hole. And I also, my read on what you were saying as well, I think it was maybe tolerance, but from Corbyn in terms of not pursuing a purge as ruthlessly. I also think it was weakness. He wasn't as politically assured. But essentially, every single member of the Parliamentary Labour Party at points wanted to get rid of him. Yeah, in times. Various investigations into the Labour Party since have found that he literally had, backroom staff and MPs actively actually working against them to stop them from winning an election. Yeah. So I think they had
and the briefings against him were extraordinary.
I think he had a slightly harder gig, whereas now I guess Starmer has control of the party apparatus, so it's easier for him to implement things like that, I think.
That what you're talking about there about Ian Byrne nearly getting deselected, that was incredibly ugly. It's not even like, I think we can kind of talk about it now, about the time they didn't want to bring a lot of attention to it, but this wasn't coming from the Starmer factions. But I mean, there were fights in car parks, there were brawls. It was really, really ugly what was going on there. It was it was quite mafia. Yeah, mafia-esque.
Well, that's the Labour Party on Merseyside.
Organised criminal accusations. No accusations.
No names, anyway.
Yeah. Just an organisation.
Do you know what? I think it's when an organisation or a party or people have been in charge of something for so long, they feel like it's their destiny to be there, and when you decide to challenge that. That's when you get that pushback, and sometimes the pushback can be a little bit ugly. And Liverpool politics in general has been like that for decades. But you had militants under Labour, and then you've had the issues that have happened with the ex-mayor and the corruption there. So Liverpool isn't a quiet city when it comes to politics, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
But I would say that the same people have been in charge of things for too long, and they take people for granted. And that's why you end up with those situations when someone wants to change something, someone wants to change someone who's trying to do something for the community. I mean, he got voted MP of the year, for God's sake. And then they don't like that because he's got different ideas. I just think that's wrong.